All right. So, do you need that? All right. So, yes, sir. So just talk this through with me. So validate an idea. So for the purpose of this, we're going to say that we think that the problem you're solving. So the first thing you should do is solve a problem. And let's just assume that the problem is solved. Or that this could solve the problem. Or this is a problem big enough to solve, right? Big enough. And this is the solution. And actually what's good is that he just walked in, because this will be good for him too. All right, so I was going through Andrew, this might be good for you too. So, all right. So, we've done this a lot, but I think we're gonna I'm gonna put together a webinar or something to do like how to actually physically validate an idea, like but tangible steps, not just go do this, etc. Actually physically do it. So I started writing. All right, so you have an idea and you think that you're solving the right pain point. Let's just, for the purpose of this, assume that that's the case. So then what do you do next, right? So I was talking with someone the other day, and they want to, a lot of times people have double-sided marketplaces where they have the buyer that wants it, or the big company that wants it, and then they have the consumer that wants it too, make it easier. And so they think that if they can just tap into a system, it's easy to do, or that the user's just gonna buy it. That tends to not be the case, right? So, let's see if this makes it easier. So that tends to be the case. So you would think, so the assumption is make it easier, talk to POS, call, bridge, gap. Right, so it's super easy. The assumptions are that what I think is that that's not the case. That it's very difficult to get people to change their ways. Examples on this are Carrie Norfolk, probably these guys, Documents, and then this other company too that we don't have to talk about. Well, let's just say you have two sides of the equation where you're trying to make something easier. Just because something seems easier doesn't mean people are going to be willing to do it and change it. Hey Kobe, what's up, man? How are you? So we're talking about how to validate an actual idea, and I think a lot of the times the assumption again is that just make something easier for someone and they can get it done. And so in Carrie Norfolk's early days, we would go to, so they have the customer. So Carrie Norfolk is at least in those days, was a company that people would want food delivered, things delivered. So the customer would want to order, and the restaurant would want orders. And so when we would talk to the restaurants, we would say, hey, we're gonna manually upload your order. So the process was upload menu. Then it would be marketplace on cn.com, and then sales would happen, right? Because that's what they're looking for. So they get the upload menu, we do all that work, we make it. What was interesting is we first thought it would be like, okay, tap into POS. That's really, really difficult, costs a lot of money. Number two would be tell us your menu, have business tell us info. That's also very difficult. And three, call us with, in the food industry it's 86 or 89, what do they call it when something's out?
86.
An 86. which means that things are in place. So originally the first thing was we'll tap into your POS. What we found out there that was really expensive. In the case of one of the vendors downtown, $10,000 per location to tap into just their POS per year. You think you have 10 restaurants, it's $100,000 just in POSs, no sales. Well, try and get the business to change their ways is very difficult. You're trying to make it easier for them, and when you do that, it can. The problem with this is they don't like change, right? And the other one is call us when you're out of things. They're busy, or lazy, etc. All right, so with the customers, the piece went, need food, and so they would order. But the gap is, what are they ordering? Typical or new, right? So traditionally you can get Chinese delivered, or you could get pizza delivered and maybe a couple other things. Now you're trying to change the ways in here that people are doing things even though they're not trained to do that, right? So you have to think about innovative ways to connect these two. So in a case recently, Postmates delivered us donuts, right? Give people something for free to start off with. Incentivize people to do those things. But this is just to show that both sides of the equation are very difficult to do it. All right, so let's say that you've done all these things, or this is kind of what the order would look like. So it could be Uber for dog walkers, Uber for deliveries, Uber for anything. That's kind of what a double-sided marketplace is. You're bridging the gap between two pieces. The consumer side, you need critical mass. The business side, you need someone that's going to be working with you, because it can be difficult to get someone early on when they're not really going to be willing to do these things. Who do you know is just going to give you access to their POS? They don't know you, they don't know these things. So how could you manually do it yourself? So you could, in this case, you could upload the menu yourself, right? You could do all the work and connect those people. You can email people daily. You can give them ideas. You can come through with a physical piece of paper and say, do you want this thing? But that transaction still has to take place. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. And so same way with documents, right? So you got the people on, and in their case, it's really just one-sided, right? So you have to get people to order. And so Andrew, this week, you had several orders, but you wanted more. So even when we have things kind of in that next step, hello people, it's hard to read. It's hard to get them to do the things that you want because we weren't trained to do those things. It's new. It's just not what's in our wheelhouse. What we're trying to do is get on Facebook a lot or check emails. Instead, what ways to validate early on? We talked about call every day. We talked about percent money off, day of the week. What else did we talk about? There's something else. Oh, LinkedIn, every employee.
I think something with customer referrals too.
Customer referrals, yeah.
For referrals.
So what we meant, I think I spelled referrals wrong. LinkedIn referrals, or LinkedIn, reach out to everyone in the employee. So in this case, let's say it's a bank, and you're delivering documents there, and there's 50 members of the bank that work in that branch. Let's assume that the person that you communicated with actually did tell everyone on the team that this thing is here for you. But that doesn't mean that they're going to really go through every day and think about it. So what you could do manually, and I think a lot of this is manual work, but it could really be a good influence, is reaching out to those people individually and saying, hey, I have this thing that I can do for you. Did you know about this? And then incentivize them on their first one. Because people are inherently lazy. And so you're trying to make it easier for them. Like we could walk across the street and get a sandwich, but if we can get delivered and get here in 20 minutes and only have to pay $1 or $2 to get it here, what are we going to do? Unless it's Jimmy John's, we're probably going to order the thing. And since we haven't done this, not all of us are lazy. Some of us, me, not you. but it's really trying to solve the real problem. So you think that you have the problem solved. How can you reach out to as many people as possible and actually physically do the thing? Don't automate it early on. Instead, really talk about and think about how can I do all of this myself so that you really know the ins and outs. And so what I would say in your case, Andrew, is call them every day. Say, hey, just want to remind you that we have this. So in this case, it's I'm going to deliver documents for you, right? The person said, sure, I'm going to be willing to do this thing. If they say no, don't take that as a no. Take that as a, okay, what could I do for you in this piece? Then you call them every single day and say, hey, just want to remember. Quite often, yes. Time to miss your name, but yeah, we do this a lot. So call them every day, or call someone in that business every single day. Then, on a specific day, incentivize them to use it for the first time. A lot of times, people are afraid to do first-time things because they don't want to spend the money to find out what it is. And then it suck, or be great. So show them the first time, and maybe they love it. Hopefully they do. Then, reach out to everyone in that kind of wheelhouse and say, hey, can I do this thing for you? And then maybe even incentivize them. LinkedIn's away, Facebook's away, Twitter's away. You're talking with these banks, accountants, legal firms, accounting firms, or architect firms. There's plenty of people in there. Hello, Dave. And then customer referrals say, if you help us get someone else, I'll give you X dollars of the piece. What I found is that you can, in some cases, if you have a big enough runway meaning money in the bank to allow a process to figure itself out. Postmates is a great example. They go to a different market and they want people to start using their platform. And so they've done it in two different ways. They spent money on donuts, physical labor bringing that person here, and then now have gone through and make transactions easier for us just to get on the system so that we start using it, where it's at this certain place, you can get free food every day. And I can tell you that the people in this facility are loving it and abusing it at the same time, so keep it coming. We love the Belmont sandwiches, especially this guy right here. That is the Rice is Right. He loves it. If you look at his phone right now, all you see is transactions of free barbecue sandwiches. How do you feel about that, Paul?
Feels amazing.
And he saves some money. But so they have a runway to do that. Not everyone has a runway to do that. So you have to get creative in ways that you can give someone something. Buy 10, get 1 free, right? If you buy this order, I'll give you this one for free. So in your case, what would be more manual labor is if you have to do a box. So maybe for every 3 boxes you do, I'll give you 1 regular piece of paper for free. So whatever you can do to manipulate someone's minds is what you're trying to get to actually validate an idea. And a lot of times people are very scared to do this. We talked with another company recently that is trying to bridge the gap of something that is very regulated and not easy to find, where the people have to physically call a specific place, not a restaurant, but a small business, every day to find out if this thing is in stock, right? Let's just say, for whatever reason, it's a piece of bread. Do you have this piece of bread today? And people the customer has to call every single day to see if it's even there. And the business owner has to sit there and answer the phone every day when it may or may not be there. But instead, the idea is to bridge that gap and say once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, whatever, hey, this thing is in stock. The problem with that, or the hard thing with that, is how do you know that thing is in stock? Do you, the bridger, the Uber for whatever, bridge that gap and try and do it manually so you call them every day and say, okay, now it's ready? But then how do you find the customers at the same time, the people who physically need it? So you have to find these people, because what's important to the customer is that I don't have to make that phone call. What's important for the business is that I can get this information out to as many people as possible. Both very difficult things, right? So, and you're in a similar case. So how do you know that this inventory is there? How do you know that the bread is there? Well, call every day. That's one way. Try and tap into their POS system. Likely they're going to say no because they don't know you, they don't trust you, you're not a source. What's another way that you could get into their system? Yeah, sure, if you got it. It's hard,
It is hard.
right? So call them every day, email them every day, physically go to the store if it's easy. And so in this case, I recommended trying to find 2 or 3 locations, win those things, be really good friends with those people, so that you can know what their order is. And it's very hard to figure out that it's very hard to change how someone works on something. They're already really busy. They're coming to you because you can give them more things. You can give them more bread orders. But again, you have to know what their order is. And so maybe it's you calling every day saying, here's this thing. Can you fax this back? Can you call me back? Can you take a picture of this? Or physically go to the place or physically call them. More times than not, in some of the early Carrie Norfolk days, I remember how they wouldn't call, the restaurant wouldn't call and say something was out until someone on this side of the table, the customer, would call and order a barbecue sandwich. Guess what? We're out of barbecue sandwiches, so you're SOL, what do? You have to go back and make it right and do those things. When in fact, if you could try and call them every day or make it easier, they might actually do that. So getting someone on both sides to change their ways is very difficult. So you're trying to make it as easy as possible to bridge that gap without spending a lot of time and money to get the result that you want. Questions? So to validate an idea, I believe, and we've seen it many times, is you have to get out there and try and make the process at least one step easier than it is now, but do it in a way that you can test it without having to spend a lot of time, resources, money to figure it out. One case is we had an event, and a very easy thing to talk about. We had an event, we had these really rad shirts that Dave made. Dave, I think, you got a shirt? Yeah, Dave got a shirt, I got a shirt. We wore them, no whale hunting. You can get them now on TeePublic if you want. But instead of just printing out hundreds of these things and hand them out to people, which cost us thousands of dollars, we said, we'll just tell people they can buy them at a later time. 25 people probably over the course of a few days said, oh, I want that shirt, I want that shirt, I want that shirt. What do? We just say, go to this link. How many have we sold? 6. So instead of physically having to go through all of that manpower to do it, just put up a link and see if anyone even goes there, right? And then the consumer side is very difficult too. So remember, the business side is going to you because they want more customers. The customer side is coming to you because they want it to be easier on the business side. And so trying to bridge those things is difficult. A couple of ways that you can reach a customer: create a Facebook page around something for them. You can get their email, call to action, incentivize them, daily deals, right? Postmates, how are they incentivizing me? They're hoping that I keep coming back. So they're trying to figure out the process so that I order a sandwich every day from them or something like that. A Keurig machine is a very interesting thing, or razors. So you have to buy the stem or the shaft, and then you have to get the blades all the time. So you're trying to get those repeat people. You're trying to find that thing where if you are going to have a, what are you tweeting? Is it funny? If you do get something, you're trying to, and you pull someone in incentivizing them, you're trying to get them so that you can get them at a later time to physically do it. So the best way to validate anything is through financial means. So if you can get someone to give you money for something in return for something, you're more likely to get them to return as a customer, so on and so on. So it's a quick couple ways to validate an idea. Again, the assumption is that you are solving a big enough problem that people know and that you do have the solution, but it really can be difficult to try to bridge the gap on some of these things where even though they just seem easy, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. All right, that's good enough for you guys. If you have any more questions, do it. If not, maybe take a couple questions from you if you guys have any. If not, we will wrap this up until next time. So if you guys have any questions, just give me some hearts real quick and then I'll stick around. Otherwise, we will catch you guys next time. Kobe, you still watching? And don't ever, just because someone says no doesn't mean they mean no to everything. It could just mean that they mean no to, hey Kobe, what's up buddy? It just means they no to that piece. Maybe they'll be willing to give you something else in return. One other thing I was talking about, so if you're trying to reach the customers, but the business owner is too lazy to get to the customers, maybe have literally one way that we reach people so that we don't forget about them in a later time. A lot of people call this an opt-in, but physically it's the people that come into the office. We just filled out one, but it's this piece of paper right here. And so it's super simple to get done, this can be kind of an MVP or validating. If no one fills this out, you know that the customers aren't going to be there. It also could just be an additional way to do it. All right, so that's it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll have a blog post and video supplement coming out soon. Startwithhatch.com. Startwithhatch.com. Follow us on Twitter at startwithhatch, or me at Zack Miller 84, just like you are here, but also on Twitter. Startwithhatch.com. See you soon.